the war against corruption? Barrister Victor Giwa.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. Well, I don't need Transparency International to tell me how corrupt Nigeria is because I'm in Nigeria and I'm in Nigeria and I belong to the system. I transact with persons and people daily, and so I don't need any agency to tell us how Nigeria is. But for the purpose of records and statistics and data, I can now hear what they have to say. But I want to say that, like they have said, in that report, in this report, that Nigeria have not made any progress. Have not made any improvement in terms of the fight. I don't like when we say the anti-corruption war. There's no war anywhere. You don't fight corruption like it's in a war. Corruption is systemic. It's a system that you have to fight. I have always spoken against this issue of we are fighting corruption. The first thing I must say right now for the purpose of people who are hearing us, people who are listening, is that I really believe that corruption is the number one problem with Nigeria. So I believe in the fight against corruption. I believe that efforts should be made. Efforts should be geared towards fighting corruption, that the fight against corruption should not be the affair of President Buhari. Should not be the affair of APC, as they claim. The fight against corruption should be Nigerian fight. It should be holistic. Yes, it is. Buhari is not going to be president. In the maximum he can be president to be 8 years. So if he's the person fighting corruption, after 8 years, I'm going to go back. So it has nothing to do with individual. If the fight against corruption has to be systemic, we have to put system in place. Corruption has been the major problem in our sector. I personally, as a lawyer and I'm the national coordinator advocate for people's rights and justice, I have had the opportunities of fighting corrupt practices. I have had cases of fighting corruption with the Nigerian police. I've had cases of fighting Nigeria, even within the judiciary as a lawyer. I've had cases of fighting corruption even on the street. Now, so there are real issues of corruption and we need to fight it. But like the question is, have we made any progress? Is there any development in terms of corruption that you can situate, that you can measure? Is there any measurable steps to fight corruption? We have not seen. I have not seen. So it is bad for us that, like the report said, that, not my opinion, that's what the report is saying, that there have not been any progress, in terms of the fight against corruption. And I really believe strongly that is the position, that there has been no progress. We are just doing is just politicizing it. We are just politicizing, making it a political point. And if you look at the trend, in the past, when successive governments, especially the military government, if you look at when General Buhari, when he was a general, when he took over from Shagari, then we have Babangida taking over from Buhari, and all the government will tell you that they are fighting corruption. Especially the military government. When Buhari came, he said, the system, as a head of state, he said, the system was corrupt, there's corruption in the system, inflation of contract, people were doing businesses, money was going ahead, there was, teachers were not paid, that was during Shagari, and then he came. Then he came with the fight against war against indiscipline, blah, 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 and we saw the discipline and all of that. The next thing, Babangida came and said, no, this government is tribalist, this government is one-sided, we need to fight corruption. And that has been the singing song of every government. And the president was elected again, and one of the core issues of his campaign was fighting against corruption. And here we have just been rated that there have been no improvement, there have been no progress made in the fight against corruption. And I think very strongly that is the position. We have not seen any system put in place to fight against corruption.
Okay, we have not seen any system put in place in fighting corruption. And that is the voice of Victor Giwa. He is a legal practitioner, a lawyer with us this morning on Talk Nigeria, as we talk and give solutions to the fight against corruption in Nigeria. Are we winning the war against corruption? Is the big question right here, and you would want to be part of it. Just stick around and listen. Very soon the phone lines will be open for you to air your thoughts on this particular issue, and of course send messages in this morning. And I also have in the studios Barrister Musa Apanya. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, we are back at it again, and today it's the corruption issue. What's your take on this particular issue? Have we lost the war against corruption?
I don't know which question is better, whether have we lost or are we winning. Either way you look at it, we have a big problem. You must commend Buhari. He said so. If we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. Problem with our corruption issue is that it is, he said, systemic. I want to add that it is institutionalized. Now, corruption is not just going. The way to win corruption is not about catching the thieves with their hands in the till or in the cookie bar. Really, it calls for attitudinal change.
Attitudinal change.
Yeah, behavioral change. The problem with our country is that values and norms and ethics have been eroded, and they no longer are issues of worth in our society. If anything, to be corrupt is the norm, and to be uncorrupt is an exception. It's completely the reverse now. And that has to do with the very fabric of our society, norms, ethics, and so on. What basically is usually talked about is just symptoms. This public officer was caught with so billions in his accounts, in cash in his office, at home, and so on. Those are symptoms. How did we get this bad? When how, things are so bad that how can things not be so bad when even primary school admission, getting your child into primary school, is a corrupt process.
Getting your child into primary school.
You must know somebody, or you must part with some money. Exams, JAM, NECO, miracle centers, and what have you not. You go to the university, it's not any better. We have sex for marks, and so on and so forth. Everywhere you go. But the biggest problem really is our public service. The public service. Unfortunately, what ought to be a public duty and honored responsibility is seen as a plum, something like a cherry to pluck. So going into public office, it has become a do or die affair. Why? Because it's no longer a public duty. It is a means to an end. It is the way to get your hands in the tilth, in the cookie jar, in the treasury, and help yourself. So I think we can lament so much about the situation. Some efforts are being made, all these corruption cases, whatnot. But that's just a flash in the pan. We need to go back to reorientation. We need to go back to the primary school. We need to go back to the cradle. How our mothers, how are they bringing up our children now? Are they singing lullabies of norms and stories? Those grandmother tales that teaches about values. That is very important. Listen, I grew up with such kind of life. Grandfather gathering us around and telling us stories about the rabbit being smart, about the turtle. There's always a life lesson to learn. So we have to go back to the rudiments, to as rudimental as that, because honestly, it's all about behavioral change.
With this level of corruption, do we still expect a foreign direct investment in Nigeria? So,
Which level of corruption? With this current level of corruption? Well, I was saying when I was viewing some of the incidents and happenings in Nigeria that sometimes I don't understand how some of these international agencies are funding some of our projects and what is the level of transparency in it with when we are seeing some kind of corruption in the system. And I will tell you now, when I was talking about corruption, I was saying that the corruption is systemic, and talking about solution, the way to fight corruption. And our listeners need to get this. I have been a champion of systemic fight against corruption.
Systemic fight against corruption.
Yeah, and I will tell you why. I've been saying it in various forums. I was in the TV program some weeks back, and I was saying that if you look at the EFCC Act, one of the agencies that is responsible for fighting financial crimes, Section 2345 of the EFCC, especially Section 3, gives the composition of the EFCC, and it will shock you that the composition of the EFCC includes 1, the representative of the DSS, 2, a representative of the NIA, 3, the Registrar General or its representative of Corporate Affairs Commission, 4, the governor or its representative of CBN, of the Central Bank of Nigeria, 5, you have that, of course I've mentioned it, the DG, Security and Exchange Commission, 6, representative of the Inspector General of Police, 7, representative of Nigeria Custom, 8, representative of Nigerian Immigration Service. These are persons who should be in the board of the EFCC. And do you know why? The reason is that if you are saying, let us take a practical example, that a particular judge has $3 million in his account, or is buying A and B, you don't need to go far. The CBN, call his other allies, the banks. Please, can you give me the financial statement of A, B, and C? How are those deposits made in his account? If he's running a business, if he's running a company, they will call CAC, please, can I get the directors of this company? If there are transactions, you call customs. How are they moving? So the economic and financial crimes, for example, is so institutionalized in such a way that you cannot effectively carry out corrupt practices without being caught. Talking about the system. But what on earth is happening? Now today, like I was saying it in a particular program yesterday, when people are saying, lawyers are saying the CJN has $3 million. Where did he get his money from? He had Adam Oshimole saying that, he has millions he has some money in British currency. Is he not a trader? Blah, blah, blah. And I was laughing. And I said, this is ridiculous. Are you asking me, Barrister Giwa, how the CBN got this money? Where is the DSS? Where is the EFCC? Where is the NIA? Where is the intelligence agency? And you're asking private persons to ask this, where did the CJN got the money from? Where is the CBN? Where are those regulations that you cannot put a certain amount of money in cash as deposit? Where are those regulations? Who is regulating them? Where are those agencies? The system is not working. And let me give you a good example talking about system. I was bringing a car from America. I bought a car from America and I was bringing it to Nigeria. So I saw this car, bought it some times ago, and I did ask them, I want to ship it to Nigeria. They said, okay, fine. I paid, I did the normal documentation, I took it to Baltimore in United States, in Baltimore, seaport, somewhere in Maryland. And they took the car into the seaport, yes.
Yeah,
the ship, yeah. And they told me in 14 days I will get it in Nigeria. I said, of course, that has been the normal trend. 14 days. 14 days I didn't hear anything about the car. 3 weeks I didn't hear anything about the car. 4 weeks I didn't hear anything about the car. I called, I said, God, what's happening? What you guys are not doing? They said, no, that car cannot move anywhere. I said, what's your problem? I paid. They said, no. That car you paid has a lien on it. And the person who bought it before he sold it to me bought it with money from the bank, and they need to confirm if he has paid that lien before the car leaves America. Jesus. I said, that's my business. They said, well, it's not your business. We are going to call the guy that sold it to you to be sure he has paid the lien, because he cannot take America's money from the bank, buy a car, and now he's selling it to me and he has not paid the lien on it. System. I will give you one other story. I was in Kingston University in London so a few years back, and I was in the library and we were talking, and my friend and I were discussing, and if my friend came and told me, oh, give us, let's go, my mother is coming and I want to see my mother, let's just go, she's not going to stay. So as I was in the library, so mistakenly I took my books that I was reading inside my bag and started going out. And when I got to the door locked and refused to open. And I was trying to pull it and there was an alarm key. I was like, what is happening? I tried to pull the door said vibrating. And somebody just walked close to me. When I said, hello, how are you? I said, fine. I said, what is the problem? I want to go. The man said, do you have anything with you? I said, no, I don't have anything with me. He said, do you have anything in your bag? I said, no. Just remember that I have the bag. He said, oh, sorry, that is why the door will not open for you. I said, wow. I dropped the bag and I left. System. I don't need the police. I don't need the FCC. So we must put in a system. So we don't need to see somebody having dollars, they will not start asking him how he got the dollar. Before he start putting the money, the system must be able to checkmate him. In Nigeria, we saw persons who stole 10 billion naira from pension fund. A director, a public servant. Until he stole that money, we didn't know. Sure, we even knew after he has stolen the money and he's buying houses. We saw public officers having 108 cars. We have seen public, and they are still existing. It is still going on, and somebody is saying, no, we need to put in system. It is system that fights corruption, and you're not just making noise about it on pages of newspaper.
Okay. How do we assess the fight against corruption by Buhari administration? How effective, Barrister Musa Panyan?
Well, if you go by the reported cases of the people that are being caught and being prosecuted, and you also go by reported cases of recovery of stolen funds from individuals and so on, it will appear that we are making progress. We can only say we're making progress, but I doubt that amounts to winning the battle. Because that's just an aspect of it. Like I said, it's not about just treasury looting. It has become a way of life for us. It's an attitudinal problem. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Corruption. The former ambassador of America to Nigeria was famously quoted, and it is true, I've always said it likewise, that to disregard the rule of law is the worst kind of corruption.
To disregard the rule of law is the worst kind of corruption.
Exactly. It's worse than thieving or stealing. Because what happens is disregard to the rule of law leads to impunity. What do I mean? Our country is such a way that people do anything they like and get away with it. Okay? That is because we don't have respect for the rule of law, no due process. We don't. People do whatever they like and get away with it. Break the law and get away with it. It's impunity. So that in itself is serious corruption. You know? So, are we making progress? I think in the recent times has shown that we are retrogressing.
Retrogressing?
Yes, in the areas of observing and enthroning the rule of law and democratic good governance. Wow. You know? Listen, usually when you want to look at development indices, there's one that has been overlooked over the years, and that has to also do with indicating how corrupt our system is, particularly the government. I stumbled upon it recently in court. I looked at the casual cost list, and when we get to court, there's a cost list, the number of cases and the type of cases. before that court that day. It could be as many as 20 to 30 or 35 or 40 cases, depending. And other than the criminal cases, which involves the state against offenders of the law, that's okay. But of the civil litigation, it may interest you to note that of the civil cases, 75% of the civil cases are cases of citizens against government.
Okay.
I said, of the civil cost list, 75% of the litigation, civil litigation, you would observe is between citizens and the government, not between citizens and citizens, but citizens and the government. That in itself tells you there's an anomaly. It points to one direction and only one direction: bad governance. Why? The only reason a citizen takes his government to court is because his rights have been infringed upon, is because the rule of law is not being obeyed. Due process is not being obeyed. So we have more of those cases of citizens suing government than between citizens versus citizens. That is a corrupt index indicator for me. And that is buttering the point that disregarding the rule of law is the worst kind of corruption.
Okay, this regarding the rule of law. And yes, I'm still, sending this question to Barrister Victor Giwa in the studios. How effective is the fight against corruption under the Buhari administration, sir?
Well, it's not effective. If you want to look at, like you said, the amount of money that is recovered, I believe we recovered billions of money. It's a plus if we have been able to recover money from persons who have put their hand in our collective, patrimony, and the EFCC have said they've recovered, the amount of money. But to me, I don't see that recovery as a progress. We are talking. That's why I started as saying that fighting corruption must be systemic. I think one of the caller said that the 40 billion naira, the Ikoyi saga, that money that was found in Ikoyi.
Yes.
You see, there are certain things that happens in Nigeria that if you are outside, and you need to be outside Nigeria to hear what is happening in Nigeria for you to feel and know the implication. If you are outside the country, like maybe you are in a place like UK or US, and you hear some of the things that happen in Nigeria, your other mates will be asking you, is that your country? I've been in a place where I was in the UK and something was happening in Nigeria, and the white people asking me, are you from that part of Africa? I said no, I'm not from that, because you look as if you are not sane. It looks as if you are not human. And let me tell you how. How on earth, for example, will somebody say 40 billion naira that was found in that tower in Ikoyi, that the government is one of the money that the government has recovered? How did it get there? Did the money fly into that estate? Who took it? Who was in custody of that money? Who released it? How was it ferried? Who saw it? Who discovered it? It is not enough for you to say we have confiscated it. How did it get there? How are we sure that more are not going there now? The next time the new government or whatever government that comes will recover all that money. So that is not the fight. You must be able to put answers to those questions. That money did not move. I mean, hard currency. It was ferried. Which vehicle took it there? Who took it? Where was it coming from? 40 billion naira. Was it that somebody printed it in at that Ikoyi tower? How did it leave the bank? Which bank did it leave? When and how? That is the fight against corruption. Let me tell you, in other system, I had a case where I went to a course in the US, and they were telling us that the FBI was staying in a house. they were paying visit to a particular house owned by, stayed by a Nigerian, for them to know the business the man was doing. They were observing currency, movement of currency in his account, like $10,000, $20,000. So they need to know what. Then they looked at him from what he felt in his visa to Nigeria, and they were like, "No, this man, this is what he said. But how come this man?" So they were coming to his house, park somewhere, sit down, and just watch. And they discovered that this guy was not going out. So how was he getting his money? So they were at a point they came in and said, "Come." They picked him up, and they found out that the man was involved in human trafficking. That was all they want to achieve. That, look, we need to know what you are doing. So they took their time to discuss. So, and when the man was arrested, they brought out the facts to him. They didn't even take him to court. They just said, "Look, this is what you do. Please, we need to know all other persons and other states, because of course America cannot go to other jurisdiction. Please, who are your partners?" And the guy said, "Yes, it's true," because the evidence were clear. And the guy owned up to it. He was convicted, and he told them, and they said, "Look, we allow you to have this, have that, just tell us who are your counterparts and all of that, and let's track it." So that's the point I'm making. So it is ridiculous that we have such amount of money to Ikoyi, and the only thing we are told is that it has been forfeited. We have not been told who took it there. We have not been told how it got there. And these are the stories we are saying. We have not been told how to. That is the fight against corruption. How, for example, did that young man who was a director in pension got 10 billion naira of pensioners fund? How on earth do we know the case of Mena? How did it happen? Who are the syndicates? That is how you fight corruption. So if we have failed in that, we have failed in putting the system. Let me tell you, if I intimidate you now, I can. If I'm in control of the machinery of coercion, I can tell you that the money you have, you should bring and you will give it to me, just because you are being intimidated. But when there is a system, the system will not even allow you to take that much money before it will expose you. So we are now in a system. So the answer is this: that the federal government have not done well in terms of putting up a system to improve the fight against corruption. It was a system that we have in EFCC. It was a system we have in SCPC. So I am thinking that the government would have improved on that. Okay. We would have seen more laws, would have seen more system, would have seen more activities, more policy geared towards ensuring that there is least corruption in the system.
And your answer and your references bring me to this question. By extension, how effective are institutions like the ICPC, the EFCC set up to tackle corruption?
Well, to be very fair with you, the EFCC, if you look at, that's what I was saying, if you look at the EFCC's act, you will discover that EFCC has if I am the chairman of EFCC, any good chairman, any good person can work with the EFCC Act. Let me tell you, I think Section 17 of the EFCC Act gives the EFCC the power to question anybody. If the EFCC can be passing through this street, what's the name of this street now? Good. EFCC can be passing through this street now and see a very big house. The law gives it the power to knock at the door of any of the houses and say, "Please, can I know you, sir?" They say, "My name is Giwa Victor." I say, "Oh, Giwa Victor, what do you do, sir?" I say, "I'm a lawyer." "Okay, can I have a meeting with you? Tell me let me see the sources of your money, how you are able to build this kind of house." The EFCC has that power to do that. They said EFCC has the power to see if your source of livelihood goes, if your lifestyle goes beyond your source of livelihood. EFCC has the power to interrogate you. But go and see people today, you will see a director who is earning 400,000, he has 18 houses, he has 108 cars. You are seeing, that's why people are dying to be in public offices. That's why you see judges having thousands and millions in their accounts. But EFCC has the right to ask you why your lifestyle above your source of livelihood. Okay. They are supposed to ask, but nobody is doing that. And now you are saying you want to fight corruption, and that is the problem we are having. Okay, the system is not working. Is it not strange? Is it not harrowing? There was that for a government, a foreign country donated about 800 bags of rice, if I'm not mistaken, to Nigeria, to the Nigerian government to support the IDP. About 800,000 bags of rice. I'm not so sure about the figure right now. And Nigeria Custom cleared that good for 1 billion naira. They said that goods was cleared for 1 billion naira. You now ask yourself, these are agencies that should help. It is donor. I mean, you should not have. I mean, they say waiver. How come? So these are the kind of things we see. These are the things we hear. We are seeing people today in the system. I went to a particular ministry, and they said they were still employing people into an agency right here. I can mention it. People are still employed, and when we interview some of those people, they pay to the. Some of them paid 300,000. Some of them paid 400,000. I have seen people pay 500,000 to get certain jobs right now in this system, and you see the government cannot fight corruption. Let me tell you, the people are corrupt as much as the government is. When the government is corrupt, the people will be corrupt. When the government is less corrupt, let me go to Denmark. Denmark is number 1 in the list as the least corrupt country. The people will not be corrupt because the kind of template the government sets is what the people will follow. It is when I see that A gets a job without merit that I will not want to. I will not go and pay to get my WAEC. When you see people doing 4 jobs, ghost workers, somebody is an employer in Minister of Government of Minister of Women Affairs. At the same time, his name is in Internal Affairs, and we cannot check it. That is the corruption we are talking about. So we must look at the system. We must fight. We must look at the system. So government is government because it can handle some of things individuals cannot handle. That is why it is government.